they're like, yes, we can finally relive our like the old party is now back, like the band is back together. Oh yeah, by the way, our party name is Lasting Period. Which is yeah, Lasting Period. Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host as always, Joe, and with me, the gentleman who likes to find new ways to improve the turducken, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Yeah, the turducken, is a family tradition that my family actually came up with. And the coward John Madden stole from us when he was a stable boy for my great 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 grandfather. Um, so yeah, that's definitely a sore point. I'm really disappointed in you, Joe, for bringing that up. But we have been updating it. We use an right. We actually call it an osterducken. We put all the turducken stuff. We put it in an ostrich first, or I guess last, depending on how you look at it. Um, so anyway, yeah, that's what my family is going to be doing this coming Thanksgiving, which should be very soon. I'll have to, there's somebody always gets kicked by the ostrich, um, and because it takes three or four of us to wrangle it, and I mean, it's just part of it. Like you run the ostrich down, even though you have it in a pin, you run it down. You can't use tranquilizer darts or anything like that because that's, I mean, that's just that's just weak, weak sauce. So somebody gets kicked. Usually, it's their job. You wear a cup, you wear a helmet, um, unless you're Ronnie, and then you don't really need to wear a helmet anymore if you know if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, he's on vacation though this year, so I will I have not drawn the short straw since I was a teenager, but I feel like I probably will. So I might get kicked in the head. I might not make it through this ostrich wrangling for the Osterducken tradition this year. And if I don't make it, then it's definitely John Madden's fault. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing all right. I'm just fascinated that this year's twist. You're going with ostrich opposed to your Pigrassum of yesteryear,
I
and
forgot about Pigrassum. Go ahead.
so yeah, I mean, it's just going switching out the possum for your ostrich. Okay, I mean, what you need to do, and don't forget to get an ostrich egg to batter that, so you can do like the Nick style oyakudon. But all right, now that I've completely broken this podcast and
a
jumped
paw
off the way.
for newcomers to our traditions here at another Dead Pixel. A Pigrassum is a possum stuffed in a raccoon, stuffed in a pig. Um, so yeah,
It was the
that's.
road show. That was the Arkansas tradition.
I was gonna say the Osterducken is the Texas side of my family, but the Pigrassum is the Arkansas side of my family. Yeah, gosh, man, that's so funny. Yeah, we'll have to do that. What if I do Thanksgiving in Arkansas next year? That's what we'll be doing. But this year, yeah, it's in Texas, so we're gonna go with the the Osterducken. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Now you wonder why I paused just a second before introducing my name because I happen to quick remember what that Pigrassum was all about for your introduction. All right. Well, anyways, traditionally we talk about video games, and that's what we're going to start off this time with. We kind of skipped it last time with all the other headlining news. So, Nick, what you been playing?
Yeah. So, um, last time I think that I had technically No, I hadn't. I hadn't quite finished this game. I thought that I was going to be able to, but I hadn't quite finished. So, yeah, I'm glad we had a lot of news last time. But since then, I was able to finish a little game called Citizen Sleeper 2. So I played the first one of these back in the very early part of this year. Like, I think January is what my records had, maybe early February. Um, but I played Citizen Sleeper 1. I don't remember what all I talked about with that on this podcast, but I do remember that I really liked it, and I said as much back then. So Citizen Sleeper 2. So kind of just overall for what this game is, kind of a summary. The type of game that it is, what they call it, is a dice-driven RPG. And so the basic function of it is you have a turn, which like lasts like a day, right? And you roll 5 dice at the outset of this turn, and so you might roll a one, a two, two fours, and a six, let's say. So you have those dice, and whenever you go to do something that calls for it, you expend one of those dice. So obviously, the ones are bad, and you don't really want to have to use those unless you have to. And then on up, and then six is the best. So, um, as you go through different activities, you go, okay, well, I'm good at this, so I'll use this number of die on it because I believe I have a good enough chance, or I'm really great at this, so I'll use this number, or whatever. And it's pretty apparent like what you should use as you go through. Sometimes you get really bad rolls and you have like a bunch of ones and a two, and so you're like, well, this is kind of spent. So you have to either take risks or you have to just basically go not do anything that day, like basically go back to sleep and wake up the next day, and by then you may have either lost opportunities or bad things may have happened and stuff like that. So that's kind of how the gameplay works per se. And then the story of this game, as with Citizen Sleeper 1, this story is basically it is a cyberpunk in space is probably the best way I can really describe it. So the backdrop of the story is that humanity has spread out to the stars, but and has, I think I'm getting this right, has had faster than light travel through like gates. So in the past in this game, they would have like a warp gate, and then you would be able to travel to other places through that. And then there are some ships that had like really fast but kind of still sublight travel available to them. So that's like the history. But then at some point there was a big collapse, and they call it the collapse. And the corporations that were running everything fell apart, and now the galaxy, or the section of the galaxy where humans had spread out to, is much smaller. So you're a person that lives in the belt, and what that means is basically there's a bunch of space stations and little colonies and stuff throughout this asteroid belt that is in the Helion system. And I don't really know where that is in relation to Earth, but I don't believe that it is in our, Earth solar system. I think it's in a different one. And so there's more stuff going on with that. There's like a war that's going on like further away from where you are. Yeah. So and then the other part of this game is that so Citizen Sleeper. So Citizen, I mean, I guess you can kind of go a bunch of different ways with what that exactly means, but the sleeper part is the type of android that you are. So The corporations, um, it is possible for you as a human being to go to one of the corporations and say, "Hey, I want to be a sleeper." And so what that means is your physical body goes to sleep. It is put into cryo sleep, and then they take your consciousness and make a copy of it. Kind of, they separate it out and either make a copy or maybe it's not a copy, and it goes into an android body, and then the android works for the corporation for so many years or whatever until you pay off your debt and all that stuff. And so the first game was much smaller. It was a much smaller kind of situation where you were mostly on one space station, and you would kind of go out. You went to like one extra zone and you could be on that and then you could come back. But it was mainly all taking place on like one space station, just very kind of all in one particular area. And in the second game, the subtitle for the second game is Starward Vector. And so you learn about a third of the way through the game kind of what that means. And that is that you start out in a place called the Spindle, which is a really long, spindly like space station. And then, or actually, that's not correct. That's the second place you go. The first place you are is on one space station. You do some stuff, and then you go to the Spindle, and you do a little bit more, and then the game opens up, and you are able to go to different places along the asteroid belt, and that is like the 2/3 of the game is going to this station, going to that station, and trying to follow the beats of the story, but spread out through the asteroid belt. And that part of the game is actually really is super cool. It's like, okay, I see what you guys did. You guys took the first game and you made it like a lot more. And then and so the first game was kind of all about you being a sleeper and being beholden to the corporation and trying to get free of the corporation. So you were on the run in the first game from the corporation, and you had a tracker in your body. And so they were sending bounty hunters after you. And so you're trying to one, get that tracker disabled. And I believe that this was also in the first game. Yeah, it was. You had to, in the first game, you had to use this serum that basically made it so your android parts did not decay and fall apart. So so you'd have to get that serum, and that's basically the game's conceit in the first game. That was like its way of saying, you're breaking down, this is your time limit, hurry up, and then you would have dice damage, I think, and stuff like that. Through that. Well, in the second game, through the story that is told like immediately, they get rid of both of those things more or less. It's kind of same but different. They get rid of the serum stuff, and they do a different sort of problem that you can have, and then they get rid of the tracker specifically, but they still have somebody like looking for you, and they have like a timer that shows like when they're going to find you and stuff like that. So it's a really good idea, and I'm glad that they kept it into the second game, because it keeps you kind of on your toes and being like, okay, I can't stay here for too long. I've got to keep this moving, and I've got to keep things going along. You can't get too comfortable. But yeah, so the other thing I'll say about the gameplay in general is that this game is mostly text driven, and I know that doesn't really seem like it would be that fun, but they have a lot of text that is told in the story, but they have other text that is kind of nested in little diagrams, and they have different characters that pop up on the screen. Really, I mean, it depends on what kind of art style you like, but really well drawn, well rendered, well designed characters that pop up on the screen just in static images, and then they go through the story, and then every time the kind of character, like the character that's talking or that it like is really the main point of what you're doing changes, they'll change that character drawing, and they don't really ever do too much. They give you story, they back out, they let you do gameplay and dice rolls and stuff like that, um, and then they come back to story and stuff like that. So it's pretty well balanced. If you're somebody that doesn't like to read in games, then you're SOL on this game. It's you're not gonna like this. But if you like a really good story, then this is gonna be something, and you're okay with reading and stuff like that. Then I think this is gonna be something that you could like. But yeah, so just kind of final note on the game on this as a sequel. This is a really good game. Like I knew that I was gonna like this game. I think I would rate the first one probably about like an 8, somewhere in there. Probably, one notch better than Death Stranding 2, for sure. But this Citizen Sleeper 2 is the same game, is the same as the first game, but with a lot of really good advancements. Like they really were like, okay, what works with the first game? Let's keep that. What can we make better? And let's just make those things better. And the first game came out in 2021, I believe. I thought it was 3 years. Maybe it's 2022. Um, anyway, it's been about 3 years, or it had been about 3 years whenever this second one came out, and I rate this second one as about an 8.5. I think probably I could probably mess around with that a bit more, but it's probably going to end up in that zone in the long run. It's just a really good sequel overall, and I really I really enjoyed it a lot. I spent, I think, over 10, somewhere between 10 and 15 hours on the first game, and this one was longer in general. I think I'm a bit of a slow reader, and I think I took some time on some things that I didn't need to. And this second one took me 21 hours. How Long to Beat has like platinuming it or whatever in 18 hours. So I guess I just took the long way around or something like that. But you can definitely finish it pretty cleanly. I read somebody online said they finished it in 9, and they seemed kind of defensive about it. They said I played it the way that I wanted to play it, and I was satisfied with it. I finished it in 9. And I was like, dang, okay, that's pretty fast. But you could definitely finish this game in somewhere between 12 and 15 hours, I think. And yeah, it's definitely, I don't know what I paid for it. But I know it's not a full price $70 game or anything like that. I think it's probably around 30 or 20, and for even for $30, I would say it's well worth the price of admission. Yeah, this is definitely going to be pretty high on my list for a game of the year. A little bit as a like, kind of wanted to give honors to the first game because I didn't play it whenever it came out. But I think just even in its own right, it's definitely um, it definitely is one of my more agreeable games that I've played this year. So yeah, very good game overall.
All right, just to answer the question you mentioned before, it's Citizen Sleeper One. Originally came out for the Xbox One and Series X, Switch, and like Microsoft Plus or Windows and Mac OS back in May 5th of 2022.
Okay.
It then got a PS4, PS5 release uh, in March, the end of March, 2023. So not quite a year later, but pretty close. 10 months later. So it does, depending on when it might have popped up on your radar. It's like, and then the newest one, yeah, that came out the end of January of 2025. So as far as PlayStation fans are concerned, you're looking at like a 2 year not a little less than 2-year jump. And uh, no, I'm glad you liked it. I know you played the first one, really dug that, and then the second one, you did take a little time to finish, as far as when you first touched it, and then finally getting around to finishing it. Uh, but it's one of those things that I would like to get around to it. Luckily, it's a shorter game. Maybe over the holiday break, spend some time with family, get that on a handheld or something.
Yeah, and I think that you could do. I mean, you can definitely play the second one because I don't think that they have much relation. It had been, 10 months or 9 months since I played the first one, and so I didn't remember a ton of the story. But my immediate thought was like, okay, this is a separate person. This is a separate kind of thing going on, and because the way the first one ends, I think the first one can definitely end different ways as well. There's a lot of choice that's involved, um, and so I think that you could play the second one without really, missing anything with the story. There are a couple things that I did remember from the first one where it was like a wink and a nod, um, to the first one when you're playing the second one. And it was like, okay, so if you played the first one, you can appreciate this or that. But yeah, the other thing, the last thing I'll say is that the the developer is Jump Over the Age, publisher is Fellow Traveler, designer Gareth Damian Martin, which I think this Gareth Damian Martin guy, I think he seems to be like the brainchild, or the brains of the outfit, more or less. Whatever, if they come up with the Citizen Sleeper 3, which I think there's, if they just write a new story and they just do a little bit more here, a little more there, there's definitely room for a Citizen Sleeper 3. I would certainly, buy it day one. Um, uh, so I think there's enough runway for that. But anything that this Gareth Damian Martin does, or whatever Jump Over the Age does next, um, I will probably be a day one buy. If it's something crazy different, then I would have to look at it. But I would be very likely to buy anything that they do, day one. Finally, the composer for these games is a guy named Amos Roddy, uh, and the music in these games is really really good. It's it's pretty low key. It's like a synthy, cyberpunky type of piano music sometimes, and it's pretty well perfect for what the game is trying to do. And I've actually listened to these soundtracks just on my own, just like while I'm working and stuff like that, because they're pretty fantastic for that. And I would like to buy them on vinyl just to kind of support and kind of have a little piece of a thing from the game, to have around and to maybe have as a conversation piece or something like that. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out him as well because the music in this game does a lot to help the atmosphere and stuff. But yeah, very good game overall. I really like it.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Current in the works of trying to finish up a few things here, but the one thing I did finish up was the last time I'm going to talk about this game, is As Dusk Falls. Long story short, uh, it's a story-based adventure game, kinda like Telltale games where, the game's on autopilot. Certain scenes, you'll have to make, decisions, sometimes under, timer. So, like, your countdown starts happening, and you, get to choose what happens or where to search, or there might be a quick couple small action sequences, which all it does is require you to hover your cursor over, affected area, like say someone's trying to fight you, and then put you can highlight their face, and then your cursor will turn a different color, meaning that that's where you'll strike. Or sometimes they'll have quick time events, move left, move right, rotate thumbstick in circle or something, hit these buttons. uh, the novelty of this game is you can play up to, I forget now, I think it was like 8 players or something, where you can just use like cell phones if you're on console or something, like a companion app, and that way you can all choose like a majority vote for what you decide. So certain key decisions, you'll need a majority vote if you want to, uh, help someone out or let them go, or whether or not you forgive somebody for something. So that's kind of based on that. You then have the options to overrule other people. So you're like, if it looks like the majority is going to go with the one way, then you can chose to overrule, but then they can counter, and you can get into a battle of overruling. Problem is, whoever first overrules will lose, but that means you'll have it's like at the cost of burning up. Like, everyone has 3 overrules. So my friend and I, for example, I didn't like this decision they did. They overruled me, or I overruled them. Then they countered. Then I countered, and we just toggled back and forth until eventually I burnt up all mine to no avail because they got the last counter in. So we both just laughed because it was stupid. But we're like, okay, and now after this point, we can't overrule each other anymore for that chapter. And then next chapter, you'll get another set of overrulings. The I've talked about the first game. The first, it's done in 2 books, 2 parts.
Oh yeah.
First part, yeah, they both end terribly.
Oh.
And is how I'm gonna say this. All right, this game, it's fun. Bad games are fun to play with friends. And now that I'm not necessarily saying this is a bad game. It has a fun story. It has branching dialogue options, and it does one thing that I really like is at the end of each chapter, throughout the story, it kind of shows you the branching points and shows you the percentages of how many people picked what you picked. So that's kind of neat. You're like, okay, well, only 30% of people chose to hold a grudge and not forgive that person. Okay. And then, like the next option down the path, they're like, oh, well, 60% of people chose to choose, this kind of option. Okay. So you're kind of figuring this out as you play. It does not show you what your other choices are or how the other branches go. At the end of said chapters, it'll show you these were the final out. Like, there's 3 final outcomes, but you only got the one, so you'd have to play through and try to figure things out. Uh, so, all right, I'm just going to get into spoiler territory now. These games are pretty short. They're only something like, I think for the whole story, a campaign, uh, probably something like 10 to 12 hours, depending. And the all right, chapter 1, or book 1, I should say, book 1, essentially the story goes, you you're playing as 3 different groups of people, mostly 2, but you're a family moving from California, to St. Louis, and as you're going through, Arizona, you get sideswiped by a truck, car breaks down, and you're stuck at a hotel. Second group is 3 brothers who, are robbing a place, robbing a house because they need money, and, uh, turns out that's the local sheriff, and they end up having being they kind of are being chased. They run to the hotel, and that's how everyone converges. And then the third group that you don't really control necessarily, but the other third group that is there is the hotel owner and their employee. So you kind of see things from their point of view to a certain extent. Um, well, the family that's moving, you have a husband, wife, a little girl who is maybe 6 at the oldest, I think, and a grandfather, so the husband's father, who's been estranged, but recently has had a bout of cancer, and so he's reconnected with them, but he literally just he was an abandoned dad. So the son grew up with his dad just not in the scene. And turns out, everyone has their own little personal backstory dilemma, and as things go, depending on how you play, things can go smoother or not. Uh, while the brothers held up the family, we ended up getting a sheriff shot, essentially, or like a deputy shot. Like, just by our decisions, something happened. That person gets shot, which escalates things in a certain manner. Turns out that the sheriff, the main sheriff who the brothers stole from, is a crooked dude, and so you're stuck between supporting a crooked sheriff or like trying to help out, or like talk with the guys who currently have you held hostage. And it's one of those when you have a game like this when you're playing both sides of the fence, something like a Heavy Rain or Indigo Prophecy slash Fahrenheit, they, when you get to when you're playing a bad guy, you're like, okay, well, how bad do I want to play these guys? Do I want to succeed and then have them continue to be them, or do I want to stumble and make them fail? Or like obviously, it's like we as a player know that the cop is bad, corrupt. We don't know how corrupt. We just know he is. So it's you get to really, then this is where the group mentality when playing with friends. This is where kind of fun comes in because you're like, all right, you can kind of argue with each other to a certain extent, or be like, no, 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 you should choose, choose this. Um, I think in essentially by the end of story one, the path we chose led to one of the family members passing away. Uh, and all right, big spoiler. At the end, the little girl gets kidnapped by the family, and there's a cop chase scene. There's a train that comes by. Looks like their car is gonna get hit. Fades to black. You're like, what the crap is that? All right. So that's the end. It literally shows rolls credits, says book one, rolls credits, does not auto load you into book two, just kicks you to the main screen.
Uh,
And we're like, wait a minute, okay, so that's it. That's it? Alright, sure. We kind of looked for little questions, like, maybe we just chose wrong. That's the way we figured, like, okay, there according to the paths, there were 2 other endings. We're like, "Okay, so maybe we just screwed up." And by trying to look up a question that we had, we're like, "Oh, wait, they're talking about something completely different here." And so I went to level select, found, "Oh, wait, here's book 2." So then we just loaded book 2, and then the story continued. We're like, "Alright." And the original story continues with, which is the part that confused us, is essentially the little girl as an adult. So she's, we would say in her like 20s or something like that, like early 20s, like literally 2021 or something. So everything that originally takes place at the hotel is like 98, and in her timeline when they show her is in like 2012. So it's a 14-year time jump, and she's living on her own. Book two plays a little bit more of her as well, and then starts showing more flashbacks. But she's the kind of thing is they start from the very first intro scene and the outro scene. It's just her like in the swimming pool, holding her breath underwater, trying to get control of herself, or like flashbacking essentially. And you can kind of tell she has some PTSD and some issues. If you play the game and one of her family member, all her family members survive, it's kind of hard to see the PTSD involved in this to the point where it's traumatized her so much to the future because she would be a 6 year old. Um, and she would have had a lot of time to recover. Now, if you're talking about like a 12-year-old or a preteen, teen, early teens, high school, you can totally see that baggage carrying over. But like a 6-year-old, it just doesn't make any sense. Luckily for us, one of the family members died, so that really at least anchors that point home. Like, okay, we can kind of let it, like, okay, we got that person killed. That was on us, but at the same time, we both agreed in our decision. Uh,
okay.
my friend and I, we it wasn't a good death, but we were okay with it. And so that's like the whole linchpin is like it's like this girl with trauma, and we're like, it just didn't make sense that it was a 6-year-old,
You're
six
like
year old,
y-
14 years later, I'm just, it's just
you're
like, and
like
her,
you're like walk it off. It's fine. You're fine. You're fine.
like if it was played, without any major death, it's like, yeah, it really would have been more or less just fine. Um, Anyways, Flash, like it's you get to literally do continue the story where it leaves off, and you're following one of the main storyline goes with one of the brothers, who's been the nice one from the beginning. So, and then we chose to be nice to the little girl, which made it weirder because like her traumas between like the youngest brother and this little girl, like she just remembers the key things, but at least she does say it doesn't make sense. She knows that he was trying to be nice, but just certain key things are her trigger like words, and like, okay, at least they address that because we played him decent. We didn't make sure we made sure he wasn't mean. Um though one of our decisions, which was one of the ones I got overruled with in book 1, did lead to someone else in the family getting hurt, not dead, just hurt. And so like, okay, I'm like that. And then the entire time that ever anything that came up with that, I'm like, that was on you. I would blame my friend that I was playing with him. That's because of you. That's you. Uh,
You got
we
them.
could have avoided this had you not done that. But
Uh,
we're just playing two sides of the same psyche at this point, like but yeah, it's just the game is like I said, it's fun enough. But then certain key things, book 2 literally got my buddies so riled up to the point where like a week later, because we only play once a week. Following week, like, I've thought about it multiple times during the week how we got dinged for the decisions we made because at the end of chapter 5, so the second chapter, each one's 3 chapters. We got the youngest brother's on the run, and he happens to be with a girl that he kind of meets along the way, and they connect. She's like, "I can get you some. I can get us some fake IDs, and we can cross the border because he's literally on the run." And he's like, "We can go ahead and like we just need to connect with this person. Uh, you're at this person's house party. They're having just a giant rager in like 98. And she ends up taking some E and she's just like, she's tripping. We chose to abstain because we're trying to play a decent guy. And and then she ends up more or less meeting up with her connection who's hitting on her hard. And the scene before was her talking about how like she feels like she's floating and everything. And then here she is in his bedroom and we're trying to intervene. And she's like, "It's okay. I got it. Blah, blah, blah. We're good. We're just going to talk." And so we stand up for her, get into a fight, and she gets really angry at us. So we're like, she's like, "You couldn't just let me handle this on my own." And she gives you at one point, she had given you a look like just let me deal with it. And we're like, the last scene is you were high as a kite. We are not going to let this guy take advantage of you. And then by the time the end of the story route, we're like, we got the just friends. Like she so and so looks at you as a friend. I'm like, what? We are in trouble. We got in trouble for fist fighting her ex because he was going to take advantage of her while high. Like, w what part of that made it seem like it was a good idea to just let you be? So we were so like I said, that part annoyed my friends so much the following week, they're like, "That still bothers the crap out of
so
me."
like the logic of the game is sort of like what you guys think is okay is not what we think is okay, kind of.
We were supposed to be under the pretext that she sobered up.
Oh,
She had sobered up between that, like, 5 minutes in their real world time or whatever, and I'm like,
okay.
"Okay." But, it's by the time we made it to the end, like, the chapter 2 has this whole, like, subplot of her, the little girl growing up and now being re-triggered because of she's been getting letters and stuff from, uh the youngest convict or the escapee boy who's in Canada. And so she's relapsed and now she needs to face her fears or depending on how you play her kind of deal. But she also sees a shadowy figure. She thinks she sees someone out in the distance. So you think it might be him who's kind of stalking her. Turns out the game ends. Okay, here's the big spoiler. Game ends with uh the little girl meets the guy who escaped, uh, confronts him, everything's fine. She comes back home. Grandpa, who we distinctly tried cutting ties with in the first chapter, first book, still is in her life and calls or leaves a voice message about like, "Hey, there's some I have the real reason why I asked your dad to drive through that town and everything went wrong. Like I originally had something to tell you about that I've been keeping secret because then like you kind of figure he's like a grifter. He was going doing cons or something like that. But he goes, he was keeping a secret, and she goes to visit him. You hear an argument. You hear a gunshot. Screen turns black. More or less, that's the end of the game. Uh, the assailant bolts out, who is the shadowy figure that she had seen before, like, but it's not the you don't know you now know it's not the main kid, so you have no idea who this assailant is, and it just ends, just like straight up ends on a cliffhanger. If they didn't have that scene altogether, if the grandpa bit didn't end, it would have actually just ended. Everyone talked to each other. They concluded their own thing. Some people might have gotten um, some peace. Other, like other people may have not, depending on your dialogue choices. But you didn't have to add that extra little bit. And it's been a handful of years now since the game come out. I think it's the PS4, PS5 version came out in 2024, but the original, part one at least, or the first game came out in 2022. The likelihood of this getting a chapter three is slim and really infuriating because it's like, honestly, uh, this cliffhanger BS is just nonsense. It wasn't riveting enough. We just kind of wanted it to end anyways. So
I mean, honestly, it seems like if they kind of screwed up twice, on each of those book endings. So it seems like I don't know what this game is being rated as in terms of like reviews and stuff, but if people are disliking it kind of as much as you are, at least the way that it's ending, they might have been like, look, we had two in the chamber, but a third one, the reviews are too bad, and we can't risk putting money into it because it's probably just not going to sell.
yeah, well, I think it was a game. I know the game originally, like when I first saw it, was a Game Pass game,
Mm.
and then it's available now on PlayStation Plus extras, tier and higher. So the it's roughly Metacritic has it looked at as mostly 70s, like
Okay.
PC 76, 77 on Xbox, 80 on PlayStation. So they're a little more forgiving. Uh, I'm not. But those are critics' reviews. Like I said, the game itself is kind of fun. Just certain key points, certain things that make sense don't make sense because their logic.
Right.
I like I said, if it weren't for the fact that one of the family members died, her whole trauma just seems moot. She's like, I was kind of there when some people. It just would have seemed like a nothing more than a minor robbery or like a heist.
Mm.
Once again, if you were a full fledged adult, but she was just a little kid. Uh, so like I said, the way we played it, I think is canonically correct because we have more trauma for her to be baggaged with. Um, and it's once
this
again,
is
it is
this is how Joe raises his kids too.
yeah, well, I mean, if my kid said once I want to be Batman, I'm like, oh Christ, all right, dear, we got to go to the hood and like go to the opera. Okay, I'm sorry,
go,
we got a Batman child. Um,
go to the hood and the opera and the hood.
yeah, it's just there you go. There's Nick's new musical. Instead of the Phantom of the Opera, you know, the Opera in the Hood,
Oh,
and
oh
yeah.
my
But
god.
this is it really is going to be a game that you wanna play with friends. I
Okay.
recommend do not play this game by yourself. I mean, you can, especially if you're a completionist. I don't know why anyone would wanna complete this out maxed, like,
It sounds like
I don't
it's like a game that you may not want to play, but if you do want to play it, you want to play it with friends.
yeah, it's an easy game to play with people. It's, not terribly difficult, though through one of the my friend is notorious with button mashing. They're being bad at it, just terrible at button mashing. There's a lot of sequences where you have to button mash together, but then other times sequences where like it'll let you know beforehand. This player is going to be next to do a quick time event, and I remember one of them. I forget what it was a quote unquote serious moment, and my character. I had to button mash, X or something like that, and then for them it was hold, so they just had press and hold the button, and then it went back to me, and I was like, button mash all over again. I'm like, okay, so this thing is listening to us, isn't it? You know. And
That's
I
funny.
forgot one of the other minor moments was we were playing as someone who was insignificant, in my opinion. It was like it was another person, but we had seen them kind of offhand in the first episode. This is our first book, and here's the second book. I'm like, but like they went 2 weeks earlier before the hotel incident. So like, okay, so I know this person's okay. So it completely kills all tension for me, being like, we saw them right in the very beginning, perfectly fine, perfectly healthy. So that's just fine. And then at one point we're in the woods and this boar is attacking us, and I didn't like this character. This character I thought was stupid. So I'm like, and so the boar is charging, and it's like juke left, and I'm like, nah, dog. And my buddy hits, it shows that they succeeded, and I just didn't do anything. So then they get like a minor gut wound from this boar, and I'm like, we thought it was hilarious. I'm like, either way, you escaped just fine. I just also kind of wanted to see how much crap you can get away with, by failing. Certain games, like, was it Beyond Two Souls? Beyond Two Souls is the notorious one where you can fail through a lot of that game and it'll still carry you through it. So that's exactly kind of how I felt about this. My buddy's just like, you just didn't hit anything at all. Like, nope, nope. I just let him get hit, you know. And then at the end, it's like only like 20% of people like let them get hit or like failed in that sequence. So I'm like, no, I didn't fail. I just chose not to, you know. That was a conscious decision on my part. And that's the other thing is if you're playing with someone who opposes that decision that you're going with or just doesn't want to, like they can wreak havoc in your game. So if you want to play chaos, if you know about this game ahead of time,
Mm.
that's one thing you can do, making
It could be kind of
uh,
fun.
a mediocre game a little bit more fun, but also it might break your friend group apart if they're playing this or taking this really serious.
This is a friendship tester game.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think some of those was it Until Dawn slash Supermassive.
Mm, yeah.
I think those games are a little bit better for that. Dark Picture Chronicles. Those are ones you take more serious, and they have greater tension. Um, so this is I think the difficulty level in this one is a bit easier. So if they're new to gaming, if you have a friend or significant other or something that like isn't a hardcore serious gamer, this
Mhm.
is most definitely kind of up their alley. And because it is very much a visual novel or just an experience that you kind of just play through. And you can also there's a lot of accessibility options, which is nice. I didn't actually get to play around with them a lot, but you could probably tweak the button mashing or I know there's one for like the timer as well to change the timer or cancel out the timer, possibly even altogether. So you don't have to deal with that pressure of quickly reading what you're going to do and choose. So I think that will be a lot easier. So it's like my first Telltale game kind of experience.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's it. I'm done talking about this game forever until someone else makes me play through it again. And then if I have any good anecdotes, um, I wanna play with you, and then we'll just see how what bad ending we can get, how many people we can get buried and by the end of the story.
Okay.
Um,
I'm in. I'm in.
alright, that would be for the Patreon later on, when you also do your cooking channel of how to make,
It's a Pigrassum.
uh, the Pigrassum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, sweet. What news do we got for us, Nick?
We're going to news or we're going to watching?
Oh, I guess watching, I suppose, at this point. You've been wanting to talk about this for a little bit, you were excited about it beforehand, so shoot.
Yeah, okay. So I went to the theater, and I watched a little movie called Predator Badlands. So I got a buddy at work who I told about this movie back when I first saw a trailer for it. He's into some similar stuff, and he was like, and he kind of walked away, and then he came up to us and said that he saw it and that he liked it. He said it was good. So I was like, okay. So I went and saw it in the theater because I was kind of in the mood I wanted to see this movie in general, you know, sooner rather than later because it did pique my interest. Um, but I also kind of wanted to go back and just kind of have a movie theater experience because I haven't had one of those in a while. So basically, this movie is in the Predator series, and it is a very, you can tell all this from the trailer, but basically it's about a I didn't know what the predator species was called, but it's about a yautja, which is the name of their species, but it's about a yautja warrior, a predator, who uh, for reasons that I might get into, but it's kind of spoilery. For reasons, he has to go to this planet and kill this like impossible to kill creature. And on so this planet in general is full of creatures that like everything on this planet wants to kill you. And so he lands on the planet and gets like head kicked in, metaphorically, a bunch of times and nearly dies a bunch of times. He meets a human android, or an android essentially, um, and the android helps him, and he, they're kind of foils for each other more or less, and they don't really like each other, but they kind of have to help each other. You've heard that story before, and then more things happen, and story kind of opens up, and so on and so forth. So I'll start with the good for this movie. This movie has I think that the idea for this movie, the conceit of like, a predator in training and like a predator trying to earn his stripes or get his wings or whatever, is a really good concept. And the concept of like this planet being just a really like hellish place to try to survive it all, is a good idea. And then the android, being like the helper. So the thing about the android, if you watch the trailer, they show this, that the android has, it's a girl, and she has no legs. Like her legs are gone because of damage that she's incurred from a previous, encounters with monsters and stuff. So, so all those things, all the part that I just described, is all in the trailer, and I can see why, because it is the central point of the movie, but it's also kind of the best stuff. The best ideas are kind of those three main things there. Um, and then the other good thing I'll say about this movie is that the action in this movie is all pretty dang good. It's pretty cool. Like, okay, that's cool that they did that. That's cool. That's a cool thing that they did. Okay, that's cool. So I can say that about it as well. And then part of that as well is that there are a lot of individual scenes in this movie that are really cool. Um, there is one scene that's kind of not a big spoiler, but a little bit of a spoiler. There's one scene in particular toward the end where the android that doesn't have any legs, well, she finds her legs, and she I don't know how to say this. She makes contact with her legs and has control of them. And there is a fight scene wherein her torso and upper body are fighting one guy, and her legs are fighting another guy. And the way they choreograph that is pretty cool. I was like, okay, I don't remember a time when I've seen that in particular. I'm sure it's been done because it's like, but I haven't seen it done maybe quite that well ever before. So that was pretty cool. And then there's a lot of other.
Comical. I I just by on pure I'm very much against this movie. I haven't seen anything about it. I just from the jump, I was never interested in it, but they seem to be making it. It seems like it's very much supposed to be more slapstick
So
or like more family oriented.
so we're gonna
Um,
we're gonna get to that.
okay,
We're gonna get to that.
all right, I'm gonna be
So
done. I'll let you continue. Sorry.
so you're not wrong, and that part is comical, just because like how could it not be? But it's still good action. It's not like it's not quite so clowny, as it sounds, though it is funny, because the way they do it is like you're like, this is what you would kind of have to do in this situation with your body split apart and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, so I think that's about the end. I think that the guy that plays the Yautja, I think that the Yautja, the Predator, is pretty well done, pretty well acted. The CG is pretty good and stuff like that. And Elle Fanning is the android, and she is pretty good overall. There's definitely some places where she could have been, where she would have needed either better direction or another take or two. There's just some places where you can tell that that they had a couple more takes, or that they tried a little bit harder, and other places where they didn't. So I'll get into that whole stuff. So the bad for this movie is that it feels very obviously Disney touched. Um, Before I saw this movie, and one of the things that maybe kind of prompted me to go ahead and see it is that I did that on my feed, on my YouTube feed, a critical drinker video popped up on this movie, and you could tell by the title that he did not like this movie. He doesn't like anything, really. At least not that I've watched him say talk about in a while. But you could tell he didn't like this movie, and so I was like,
Posting grief gets you more clicks than posting praise.
"That's
So
true." Yeah,
even if you don't, or if you do like it, you still post something like caption it with negativity, and then that'll get the click, and then you can dump on it, but then rectify, being like, but in the end, I liked it or something like that, and then it's a positive.
yeah. I mean, he's gonna. I kind of wonder if he just doesn't review movies that he does like movies he's like, oh, it's pretty good. Okay, what's next? Oh, that sucked. Okay, now I'm gonna make some money off of this. I don't fault him for doing that, but he didn't really care for it, and so I was like, well, I probably need to go ahead and see this because I have a feeling that it might get ruined for me. Um, and so yeah, so this movie is very Disney touched. It is very much like Disney's Predator. Um, there's a lot of stuff in it that's like lightens the mood and um, it makes it a bit too kind of action focused as opposed to terror or horror or brutal action. It is PG-13. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm sure pretty sure that's correct. And because I remember hearing that and being like, oh, it's PG-13.
Yeah,
Well,
it's PG-13. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like, well, that's not really what I really want out of my Predator, especially being a grown man now. But I was like, well, that's a pretty wide range of stuff they can still do. So, but this movie has a lot of scenes in it that are like, so I'm just gonna have to get into spoilery stuff here. So rep the headphones out now or forever hold your peace. So there is a creature that comes along in this movie, and it is comic relief. It is like comic relief in a can. That's its whole purpose, at least at the beginning. And I just kind of find myself rolling my eyes at this, being like, "Dang it! Like, we don't need this. This doesn't really help." And also, the reason why it's in the movie is not. It's like, at first it was the bad guy, but like a funny bad guy, and then for no reason, it decides to help the Predator. And I'm pretty sure I didn't miss anything. I'm pretty sure there's literally no reason for it to help, but it did anyway. And so I was like, okay, that's not really the best. And then, so heavier spoilers. Elle Fanning is an android, but she has a twin android that is exactly like her. And Elle Fanning is I think it's Tia and Tess. I think that's their names. Tia is the funny, good Elle Fanning first android that you meet, and Tessa is the mean, stern, non-smiling android, and it's still Elle Fanning. And you meet her second, and so they have like a we're sisters. Oh, I just realized that since we look alike and we're androids, that we're sisters. They have like a whole scene like that. And so that's got me like rubbing my temples, just being like, okay, I don't really care for that. That's very it's just very Disney. And then Tessa's the bad sister as we go along, and we find out that she's actually bad. And Tia's like, oh, I thought that I could like make my sister good, even though I didn't really realize that we were sisters, even though we're not sisters because we're androids. And so they have to fight, and then that. So then Tessa is defeated because it's Disney or whatever, and it just hits like the like family, like what is your family, and well the predator and this other little creature that came along to help us, like they're my family now, um and yeah, that's kind of it, like that like that and some of the other like there's some other like little bits here and there where it's like, well, we could have used a bit more of this, a bit more of that. Also the beginning is very problematic, and I kind of that's where like the beginning of the movie did set my expectations much lower, like pretty much right out of the gate. So the beginning of the movie is the main protagonist and his older, better brother. Um, and they're doing some training, and then they decide the planet to go to. Oh, it's the really bad planet. Don't go there. I have to go there because I'm so weak. It's like, oh, okay, we'll work out that in a second. And then wait, Dad's here. So Dad comes flying in on his on his spaceship and lands. And like, we're gonna go talk to Dad. And Dad comes out, and he's Predator, obviously, and so he's like, so we can't let the weaker younger brother live. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's too weak. He's and so the dad's like, yeah, he's too weak. And the brother's like, well, give him a chance. He's gonna go on his walkabout hunt. And the dad's like, nope, he's got to die here and now. Here you go, other better son. You're the one that has to kill him. And so they make it look like the older brother's going to kill him. And then the older brother's like, no. And you're like, yeah, we know that the older brother's not going to kill the younger brother because he's a good guy. No. And so he starts to fight the dad. The younger brother, protagonist, escapes, and gets, escapes from his chains or whatever. He gets kicked onto the spaceship, and then the door is closed, and then he watches his older brother get killed by the dad. But then the spaceship goes to the other world, blah blah. They do what they're trying to do. They come back, and then the younger brother has to fight the dad. And I'm just like, why? Like, is this something in the Predator movies that I just missed, where the dad, where like the weakest predator has to die, like the family has to kill the weakest predator? Like, is that part of it? Is that
What
part of the
made
lore?
Predator good is there wasn't a lot of lore. You didn't need backstory to the Predator because the Predator's goal was to hunt for trophies because they were like the apex predator. Oh, wait, what a weird name for that. Yeah, that's kind of the concept. And that's, the most lore you needed was the Predator 2, Danny Glover uh seeing the trophies all along the wall, and then you're like, oh, there's a xenomorph head. That's awesome.
Hmm.
And it's just like and he gets handed the flintlock, and you're like, oh wait, they've been here before. That's cool. That's all you needed. Like literally did not need a lot of lore. uh I wasn't a fan of the character design for the Predator because they made him very thin. Not very, it's like
So
the old Predator had like giant foreheads, and just I grew up like really liking the Predator series. Like I remember they came out with action figures in like the mid '90s. I remember saving up buying a handful of those. I mean, the Predator was, you didn't need a coming of age buildup. Like we just knew they were badass, and they were the threat. And then they had Alien versus Predator comics and stuff like that, which were really cool too.
yeah, this movie is the Solo of Predator movies. It's the movie that we didn't need, and a bunch of stuff in it that we don't want to know. We don't need to know how he made the Kessel Run in so many parsecs or whatever. We don't need to know why Han Solo, why has a life debt, or why Chewbacca has a life debt to Han Solo. We don't really need to know those things. And shedding all this light on them actually makes it worse. And and so I think that's where Disney has really messed up with this one. I mean, the ideas behind it are pretty cool. There's definitely a lot of stuff in here that is really cool. Um, but you know, the Predator's kind of always been a bad guy, or at least not the protagonist. And I think making him the protagonist and trying to do a whole coming of age and like you know pull the sword from the stone type of King Arthur or whatever stuff is it, it's there's a way that it could have been done well, but it wasn't really those parts of it was not done well here. I give it
They named the sidekick creature Bud.
yeah
I literally looked up sidekick, Predator Badlands sidekick, and, because I was expecting, I was expecting it to be like a fuzzy creature or something from like, what they did with the last trilogy of Star Wars, because we're gonna add little furry creatures to sell as marketing. Instead, it's like a little hairless monkey creature thing.
yeah
Um,
yeah that's there's a part there's like you know probably what's this movie like a buck 47. There's something every 15 to 20 minutes where you're like, oh yeah, Disney made this, oh yeah, Disney made this, oh yeah, Disney made this. And there's some good ideas in there. There's definitely some good ideas in there, especially toward the end whenever the Predator has to like do his like you know he's finished his training arc, he's finished his like you got your head kicked in and all the bad stuff happened arc, and now we're going to take everything we learned and we're going to put it at the end for you to do for you to for you to kill a bunch of white men. I mean, that's essentially what it is. What you're going to kill a bunch of white guys and space Karen. That's basically what the end of the movie is. I'm sorry for spoilers there.
are they all? Is it Utani then? Because you're talking about an android. Is it Whaling and Utani?
Yeah,
Like,
it's all Wayland Yutani androids.
so tie into the Alien, series then.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it is definitely tied in. It's almost it's definitely canon. So you cannot unwrite this. You cannot unsee this. This is part of your heritage now as a Predator Alien fan. And yeah, so I give this movie it's definitely not a 7. And I know I just like pooped all over it, but like there is definitely some stuff that makes it salvageable in some ways. I think in my heart of hearts, I'd probably give it like a 6. I think, or my head of heads, I'd give it like a 6. I think there's some endearing things about it that I did like. So probably land like 6.5, 6.7 if I'm just in a really, really good mood. But it's one of those movies that if you're not a die-hard must see everything alien slash predator, if you're not in that zone, you would probably do better to pass on this. If you are a diehard Predator fan, you've probably already seen it, but if for some reason you haven't got around to it, but you consider yourself that, um, yeah, go ahead and see it. Just take it with a gigantic grain of salt, and maybe knock a few back before you go into the theater, and maybe during the viewing of it, because that'll help get it down a bit more. Like the whole family stuff is just like there's something there that would have been cool, but it's like why like why does your dad want to kill you? But I mean, yeah. So then making him small is part of the story. Like he's a runt predator. But anyway, so that's all I got to say about that. I wish that they had done better. Alien Romulus was great. I really loved that. But this definitely has me and Alien Earth. I've talked about that a bit on this podcast. Alien Earth is definitely for a TV show. It's very good. For if it was a movie, I don't know how I'd feel about it. But for a TV show, that was very good. So this has definitely muddied the waters. I would say that it will make me much more hesitant. This is going to make me Predator hesitant going forward.
All right. That's Yeah. It seems to be getting glowing reviews on the scores, except for IMDb, which gave it like a 7.5. But like Rotten Tomatoes, is super high for the viewership of 95%, which is insane. I just can't.
Oh, that's not right. That's I mean, like like the whole the dad stuff is just like, why does your dad want to kill you? It's like you're gonna have to explain that to me. Like that's not that doesn't make any sense to a human being. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, but they're predators because they're like that's just what it's like. No, no, you no. There's there's got to be more explanation that to it than that, and there's not. And he has to like,
Don't once again, you don't need an explanation for the predators. You just need to know they'll go out trophy hunting. You can make the trophy hunting be a part of their coming of age thing, just full stop. Just be like, yeah, they're going to a hostile area, and then just they're hunting to prove themselves to come back to their war party.
yes,
Boom, done.
a pre-movie crawl, a pre-movie, text would actually have worked even better. Like the predator has to, as a coming of age, go to a dangerous planet and get a trophy without any help. If they do not do this, then they can either they either die on the planet or they die if they return. Blah blah. That's all you would need, and then landing on the planet. That's all that you need. Um, so yeah, that's definitely in that uncanny valley of explanation where it's like you explained too much, but also not enough. And so I'm in agreement with you there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. To what I've been watching. Uh, so I've been finishing up some anime from that had passed a little while ago, but the current stuff that I didn't get a chance to talk about is I'll start off with my most disappointing of this lot so far is called "The Banished Court Magician Aims to Become the Strongest." Uh, all right. So essentially, uh, kid learns magic from a guy on the run essentially. Like you don't know he doesn't know much else about him. He just knows that this dude was like a court magician himself. He warns them before their final meeting. He's like, "Whatever you do, don't be a court magician." And that was like the last thing. So what does the kid do? He grows up to become a court magician. And to try to help change the viewpoints of the nobles and to try to make real change in society, and he ends up being a lackey to an arrogant prince, and he becomes a little errand boy. Um, ends up getting kicked from the party, as any magical protagonist does, and turns out that when he was in his academy days for the you know he was a part of a crazy strong party who of a bunch of prodigies who just like wrecked shop in the dungeon, made new record, like literally broke records and everything like that. So it wasn't of course it's not until after he's left the prince's party that the prince realizes I'm a useless git without him. I'm pretty weak and everything. And all right, but he ends up meeting up with his old party members, and they are getting him back into adventuring status again, getting his legs back under him. And they're like, "Yes, we can finally relive our like the old party is now back, like the band is back together." Oh yeah, by the way, our party name is Lasting Period. Which is yeah, Lasting Period.
Oh man.
Stuff up. Just cannot. It is terrible. Okay. Um the actual animation quality is all right. The kind of story as a whole is okay. Problem is the pacing sucks. It's really slow pacing. It's I think it's like currently 7 episodes out, 5 are dubbed, and they've only just barely passed like the first dungeon crawl. Um, it's way too wordy, way too. It's too slow. So I can't really recommend it with all good consciousness. I'm like, it would if it was at a quicker pace, if there's more substance, but there's just not enough of it. So yeah, that's it. I would say honestly, give it a pass for something more towards all right, this one the all right, it says Dusk, Beyond the End of the World. And this is entirely subbed, currently 8 episodes out of 12. and I'm only a handful of episodes into it, but so far it seems really good. The long and short of it is, guy gets cryogenically frozen, and wakes up in a post-apocalyptic future. Uh, all of Tokyo or all of Japan is just more or less in ruins. It's like the post-apocalypse where, like, it's all overgrown with greenery and there's tribal villages and stuff like that. There is a central government kind of mandating or controlling the weaker villages, and they're the ones who are hoarding like the tech, while everyone else is more in a barter system or very early, financial system. They have currency and stuff like that, but it's also, so the main character is just trying to get used to the new rules of society, and he is literally woken from a cryopod due to an earthquake, and the local villagers kind of see him as a, like, almost a god, because they know he's from like an older technology, older era, and yeah, it's a neat little bit of world building. The story so far is all right. Uh, I would say it's currently where I'm currently only like episode 4. So far it seems interesting, and I'll probably end up finishing it up. I just happened to wait a while because it did catch my eye early on, but with not enough time, with the other things I was following, I was like, all right, well, if this gets a dub, then maybe I'll get onto this. But I went ahead and give this a shot and subbed, and I'm liking it, and I'll continue with subbed. We'll see in the future whether or not it gets dubbed or not. But Dusk Beyond the End of the World, if you want something a little more post-apocalyptic, so far it's interesting. All right. And the last one I'll mention is The Summer Hikaru Died. This one is this one had come out last season.
Mhm.
I happened to be interested in it, but I was like, oh, all right. Just didn't have time for it. And then I was catching up on a different anime that I kind of slipped my mind. Like, I was watching and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Didn't get around to finishing that. Went back to it and then went, oh wait, the summer Hikaru died happened to get a full dub release. Like, they just dropped all 12 episodes after the series was already finished. And I'm like, all right, let me give this a shot. Um, this one falls into the genre of, like, mystery, horror, supernatural, kind of a little bit of psychological in there. So kind of reminds me of Summertime Rendering in the fact that it's like has a high tension and like a little bit is more dark and gruesome to a certain extent. Uh, yeah, I'm only a handful of episodes in this one too, but I'm liking what I got so far. Uh, this is not a second screen experience for me. This would be most definitely, even though it's in English, I would totally just pay attention to this one full stop. Um, it's the kind of crux of the story is, um, the this one boy goes, they're in a obscure village in the middle of nowhere, Japan. And the locals believe that this one mountaintop is kind of sacred, and you're not supposed to crawl in there because kind of bad things happen. And there's certain that you kind of figure out along the way. And but this one kid goes out into the woods. He's injured. You see him right away. He's injured, and he's kind of asking for help. Something kind of happens to him. You see him next scene, he's just fine. And his best friend is kind of like, this kid is off. He's not my, he like, I know he's, and then he kind of brings, and then he just straight up bluntly says it. It's like, but instead of denying it or trying to hide it, uh, the friend just pretty much like, how did you know? Like, and he's like, I didn't want to have to kill you.
Mm.
So can we just pretend like it's all good? And he's like, and a mixture, the friend has it's the psychological issue of he's in the middle of he doesn't want to be alone. He misses his friend, but he knows the creature in front of him isn't his friend. Um, but is it okay to pretend just to kind of not have to deal with the reality of his friend is actually gone?
Mm.
But at the same time, he's not tricking anyone. He knows his friend's gone, so it's kind of that layered facet. Um, I believe him and his friend had or at least he had romantic feelings for his friend. At least that's what they project. So it's a little harder to know. Once again, I'm just only like 4 episodes in. It's fascinating. I like it. I recommend people watching this one.
I did get a chance to watch the first two episodes of this, the summer Hikaru died, and it is well conceived. It's kind of it's well drawn and well animated, and they do a lot of nice stuff with the light and stuff like that. And yeah, I got to a point. There's a point in episode 2 where it's kind of like I'm picking up some vibes here, some vibes here that I wasn't really expecting at first. So yeah, I think there is some romantic stuff that was going on between, at least as much as like kids that age can have, between those two. But yeah, it's a peaceful, anime, at least as far as I had seen in those first 2 episodes. It's kind of uh, nostalgic in a way, um, but yeah, it's pretty good if you're into those things. It's at least well created, I think.
Yeah, it has like a slow build to it. Series like this, like I mentioned, Summertime Rendering or Shiki is another one, which is very similar in a lot of aspects, being a village in the middle of nowhere. In Shiki's case, it happens to do with more with vampires. But at the same time, because you're in an isolated area and can't really call out for help type of deal, and it starts off. These things start off slow, and which is something that you can do in a series opposed to a movie, because you can have a nice little build up, kind of get to know the people, kind of get the right tension and vibe of things feeling off, things being weird, not quite right, eerie. And as it builds up, and then it will crescendo then it'll speak, like have a much faster pace. And I think this is following that format quite well. And one of part of the main character's psychological aspect in the summer Hikaru died was the fact that because he has feelings for his friend, um, it's very much that anyone's first love, or what they think is first love, like you can't let that go, or it's harder to let go. You can't accept, like it's if you ever had a bad breakup and you're like, well, let's try to make this work, even though I know it's a toxic relationship, but let's try to make this work, even though subconsciously, or if I saw it from a third person point of view, I'm like, you're an idiot, but let's try it anyways. And that's kind of this. It's like, so depending on how I'm looking at this from an adult point of view, and I still find it, pretty interesting. But I'm kind of curious how I'd feel like watching this as a younger kid, or like being a teenager, like the appropriate age demographic for this. But at the same time, I find it really interesting. What it's a big recommend that I completely missed last season. So I am totally just saying this is worth a watch. There's no excuse not to, because you have it both in subbed and dubbed. Uh, and it's pretty simple that way. But unless if you just don't like the horror, or any like, if you're only interested in like lighthearted, then most definitely don't go with this. But if you like something that's a little more adult in theme, maturity, then yeah, totally give it a shot. Give it a shot. All right, and that's it for what we've been watching. So now let's get to the news. Nick, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so there was probably biggest stuff is that there was an Xbox partner preview that happened just before, or not too long before we started doing the podcast. So that was kind of something I wasn't expecting. But yeah, there's not really much pomp and circumstance. There was no like host or guide, to go through it. They just kind of started showing trailers and stuff like that, and I rather enjoy that. I thought it was like 33 minutes long, so it was straight to the point. And honestly, I think that basically everything on this list is at least okay looking. I definitely don't want to play everything on this list, but everything on this list, I was like, okay, that's definitely not bad. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. So we'll go through it and kind of just talk about some of the things. So first thing up is a game called Armitus. So this is a over the shoulder, action. Looks like you're some kind of creature that has been brought back to fight the invasion of demon aliens or whatever to save humanity. And so it's got an interesting kind of art style, I guess, and looks pretty much like a lot of other games you've seen, but it looks okay.
Yeah, it's by the same, developers as Godfall, which I didn't, touch on, so I can't really say too much about the team itself. But yeah, it did look it's shiny, it looks nice.
Yeah, it does. It does look shiny. Next up, the Mound Omen of Cthulhu. So I don't think I missed anything when I was gathering this list, but just let me know if I did. But yeah, the Mound Omen of Cthulhu. I'm not really sure. I'm not really too familiar with the Mound series, but this one looks like it's first person, and you have like a musket or like old style guns, and it's from looks like the 1700s, 1600s or before, and you're on a ship that crashes on an island, and you have to fight your way through. Also, looks it's medieval or post medieval, but it's still kind of shiny in that way. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, the developer is, was it N or the publisher, I'm sorry, the developer is Ace Team, published by, Nikon, or it's the same guys who did, the one we just played, was it, Hell Is Us,
Okay.
and they also did RoboCop as well,
Oh,
so
okay,
yeah,
okay.
same publisher at least, so it's they have a kind of a spans of games under their belt now, so
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, then it'll probably be pretty competent at the very least. Then next up, Dave the Diver, which they're saying is already available, but then there's a new DLC in the jungle coming early 2026. That's all they list in terms of the release date. And yeah, it looks like Dave the Diver, but with instead of like a blue tint to everything, there's kind of a green tint to everything. I definitely enjoyed Dave the Diver for the 10 or so hours that I played of it. Really wish I could have played all the way through it, but yeah. So if you haven't played Dave the Diver, you really should. It's a good game. Next up, Crow Sworn. This looks to be a Metroidvania. And I can't help but see the Hollow Knight art style kind of in it. It looks good. It looks nice. But it has some of the similar kind of touch points as Hollow Knight to me. And it's you're a crow with a top hat and a and like a flowing coat, and you kill things.
yeah, the images show, also holding a scythe and pistols, so kinda like a Devil May Cry kinda thing going down. The action seems more fluid, and it seems yeah, I can see the Hollow Knight inspiration. It's probably gonna be, it's like Dark Souls or like just that, difficulty level plus just grim, but there's something about it that is more appealing than Hollow Knight to me,
Mhm.
and I'm more interested in this than Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
So, I'm kinda curious about this one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely looks like it'll be all right. Then next up, Echo Generation 2, which you and I were unfamiliar with Echo Generation 1. Um, so that this is a yeah, so it's I don't really know how to describe this game exactly. It looks like a little bit of a JRPG in some ways. Um, it's got an interesting art style. It's like everything is animated, but like in a voxel kind of way. There'll be another game that kind of has a voxel type of a look to it as well. Um, but it seems to have a lot of references to 80s type stuff. Like there's a DeLorean in it. It looks like. Um,
Very nostalgia bait. Your little sidekick is more or less a gremlin, and they're playing a lot of synth music, and it's meant to be, invoking an era. It's which is fine. I mean, they show, like, going at one point, like, a cyberpunk, like, cityscape or something like that. It looks card-based,
yeah. Oh
at
yeah.
least from the images I saw, and, like, you talk about a deck and stuff like that, so the art looks better in the sequel than it does in the predecessor, but once again, I've never really paid much attention to the first one around, so knowing looking at this, I'm like, it probably is competent, and if you want a nostalgia-fueled gameplay or if you're of a and if you like that type of aesthetic, then this probably be up your alley.
Yeah, it I mean, just looks wise, it looks pretty good. It you know, the price point is really going to determine how much I decide to invest in this, but and then it also looks like it could go annoying really, really quickly. But as long as they just pull back from annoying, then it might be something that you know is worth a weekend or so. You know, we'll see. But yeah, so that kind of was like weird. I do not really know what to expect with that. Um, next up, so from the people who made Vampire Survivors is another game called Vampire Crawlers. And so they describe it as a roguelike deck builder, but it's kind of like it's a like Vampire Survivors, but first person shooter. Um, and looks all right. They kind of have a joke at the beginning where they have like a really well rendered CG scene that looks it's well rendered, but it looks very like you know a standard boilerplate fantasy. And then they kind of make like a joke like we're not doing that, and it's just sort of pixely first person Vampire Survivors. So yeah. And then next up, they show a little thing of 007 First Light, um, where they showcase the Aston Martin that you're going to be driving in the game, and it does look pretty cool, pretty nice car. Definitely a car that I would want to drive. Aston Martin Valhalla is what they're calling it, and looks like it'll be fun to drive, and yeah, looks cool. Next up, roadside research. So you're gonna have to tell me about this game because I really just skipped through the trailer.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't care about it at all. I just thought like, it did not appeal to me. Essentially, you're playing as, aliens who are running a gas station trying to, understand humans, and that's the gist of it. You have different party members that, have different roles, I guess. It's supposed to be co-op. And they're saying it's co-op like Lethal Company or something like that.
okay.
So it's gonna hit a popular thing with, like, Twitch
They
or, like, that.
they have Men in Black in it.
Yeah.
they have yeah, that's okay.
But
Um,
the thing is the aliens are very much aliens with just paper, faces, like, over them. Literally eye holes cut out of the paper, and so it's meant to be tongue in cheek, comical. So, depending on how the comedy works, like, it'll either do really well or it'll fall flat. It's kinda hard to do comedy in games, like, especially, so,
yeah,
we'll
you really only get one shot at that joke, and if it doesn't land, it's gonna be a long run. Yeah, like it's a game that I don't want to play, and I would never want to make it, and I don't even really want to watch anybody play it. But I'm glad that somebody decided to make it, and we'll just see if it sucks. All right. Next up, Total Chaos. So they kind of hold the name of this game until the end, but it is an FPS horror. I guess so, sort of like survival horror FPS. Has a good look to it. Looks spooky as you know can be in some places. They get the light uh, correct, in my opinion. They do a lot of weird stuff with the atmosphere. They show a little bit of gameplay, and it looks to be pretty standard fare in terms of FPS horror. But yeah, so I feel like if you're a horror fan, I mean, maybe if you're a true horror fan, you know more than me, and you wouldn't know why this is good or bad. But to me, if you're a horror fan, this is going to be on your short list for next year at least to pay attention to. And if it ends up being like widely panned, then maybe you'd skip it. But looks pretty good. It looks like it's probably a little too scary for me, but I wish I could play
yeah,
this.
it looks pretty creepy and morbid, so for sure, if any of that, if you're good for a good scare or, like, creep factor, then for sure. All right. What else?
Next up, they do a little. They show a little bit of the new Reanimal. We have a release date now. I'm not sure how long this has been out, but release date is February 13th of 2026. So it's coming right up. And like I was telling you before the podcast, like, looking at this trailer versus everything that I saw from Little Nightmares 3, I haven't played Little Nightmares 3 yet, but just looking at this trailer versus Little Nightmares 3, and this Reanimal just seems like it is capturing the Little Nightmares vibe just a lot better. It's the same guys that were on Little Nightmares, and for whatever reason, they are not on there anymore. They were on there for 1 and 2, I believe, but not for 3. And so yeah, this has me very excited. I still need to play Little Nightmares 2. I only played the first one. I was kind of trying to let that cool off, but I'm gonna try to play Little Nightmares 2 before this comes out, and I will almost certainly be a day one purchase for me. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the other games they've made have all been pretty solid, so it can't really. They're one of the. They're they know what they do. They know how to do what they do. So I mean, and they seem to do it pretty well.
yeah, they seem to know what they're doing. Um, Next up is a little game called Erosion. So I didn't really know how to describe this, accurately, other than to say isometric voxel roguelike shmup. It may not really be a shoot 'em up in the purest sense, but
Twin stick shooter is what it is.
twin stick
Yeah.
shooter. Okay, yeah, that's probably better explanation. Um, so with this game, this is a roguelike. So you're a dude. It's futuristic, but also Western. Every run, 10 years goes by. So they show like your daughter as like a child, and then like as a woman, and as like a middle aged woman, and as like an old woman. And so it's like every time you die, you lose like 10 years. So you obviously don't want to miss your child growing up. So that's part of it. And it's very noodly legs, noodly arms, but it's pretty, and the it looks pretty fun. It's serious, but also kind of wacky. And actually, it looks okay. It's slated for spring 2026, so I would imagine March or later. And yeah, this I'll keep my eye on. I'm not sure. Not sure if it's going to be great, but I'll definitely keep my eye on it.
Yeah, it kinda has that swords and sorcery, like, pixelated look to it. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it also takes with the roguelike concept, kinda like, Sifu, as you die, you get older, time progresses.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I didn't think
so
about that,
alright.
but yeah, that is very much seafood. Next up, a Zoo Punk. I just have a furry action game. So, um, the furry community is a longtime friend of this podcast, and I think they'll be very interested in this game. So the protagonist is you as a kind of a badass looking robot rabbit guy with a trench coat, and yeah, it's an action game. You punch things and kick things and hit things with a sword and stuff. And there's other furry animals that you fight. It's futuristic, kind of post-apocalyptic. Looks vaguely Warhammer 40K in some places. Maybe that's just my polluted brain, but actually looks kind of good. Looks kind of good. This looks like it'd be a pretty decent, 15 to 25 hour experience. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with this.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be behind the team that did Fist.
I thought
The
that's the game I was trying to think of. I was like, this looks like that game Fist. Okay.
So yeah, that relates to the aesthetic for sure. Alright, what's next?
Next up, Clover Pit, which it's a slot machine game. I don't really understand really much about how this game works or whatever, but it's kind of a Windows 98 aesthetic, and or maybe like Windows 2000 aesthetic, and you do a slot machine and pay your debts. And it's kind of creepy and weird. So I'm not sure what the story would really be, but it's a slot machine game.
it's like a slot machine version of, was it Buckshot Roulette, which is kind of its own version of Inscription. So it's kind of like Inscription and then the trickle down effect from that, is the vibe I got. Once again, I don't know much else about it. It just seems to be, you know, you're, the addiction of gambling, I guess. I don't know, slot machine where you're showing rolling 666, oh no, so I'm I'm vaguely curious, but at the same time, I kind of don't care until someone else tells me to. I'm not interested enough to really jump down that rabbit hole. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, it feels like a game that might end up being like um, Inscription. I doubt it'll be that good or whatever, but it just feels like one of those games where it's like, this looks like something, and then you get into it, and people get into it, they're like, whoa, this is actually really awesome, and word of mouth spreads. But we'll see.
All right.
Next up, a little bit of Hitman DLC. Um, Man, they're just on point with this Hitman DLC. The last one was like Bruce Lee, and I really wish I could go back and play some of these. But this one is Eminem versus Slim Shady. So just I really want to play this. I might have to just reach out and just play this because I love Hitman, and the Eminem Slim Shady sort of feud, but between him and his alter ego is just kind of funny and stupid. So I'm excited. I actually I think I might actually try to play this. It's just funny to me. I mean, it looks good.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, Tides of Annihilation. This was shown a while ago, and they just show quite a bit of a gameplay kind of boss fight preview of this game. I feel like this game is, when we first heard about it, I was kind of disappointed because it was like a really long way from coming out, like a long way off from coming out, and I don't remember seeing an update on the potential release date. But it looks like it'll be pretty good. It definitely, it's from Eclipse Glow Games, and it definitely has a Stellar Blade vibe to it. I mean, female protagonist, but is kind of the main thing there. But also just the fighting style and stuff like that seems sort of similar as well. But very shiny, very pretty, actiony. Looks good. I mean, I was already sort of had my interest peaked when I first saw anything about it, and this is only bolstering that.
Okay.
And then finally, Raji Kali Yuga. I am pretty unfamiliar with the first Raji game, and this Raji game. We're seeing some CG, some CG animations and cutscenes and stuff. Not a whole lot else though, unless I missed something in the trailer. So I can't really tell you what this game is really going to be about. But I imagine it's going to be fairly similar to the first Raji game. So yeah, they're making another one.
Yeah, the what little screenshots they showed was like third person, God of War esque, and so it's like pulled back, not really up close angles. But once again, there's just a few images that I came across. But yeah, like I said, the showcase or this partner preview was pretty on point, just one thing after another. And yeah, nice and condensed, not a lot of fluff, not a lot of banter, uh, and that's good.
And everything seems very playable. It doesn't look like they really tried to hide anything or be like, oh, this is the runt of the group. Everything's like, well, it may not be for me, but definitely, looks all right at the very least.
All right. And what's the last little segment we got here?
So last little thing, we don't have to spend too much time on this. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So basically, somebody is alleging that Disney, one of Disney Studios, has plagiarized some choreography from a fan film. So there's a 2019 short film that was made by Lorenz Hideyoshi. Um, and with I guess he was the director or creator or whatever, and with him and his friends or the people he had to act in it. Um, so they made this film and released it in 2019, and there's some fight choreography in this film, and then flash forward about 4 years, 2023. There's an episode of Star Wars Visions, the episode called "The Bandits of Golak." um, Seems to use the exact same choreography, pretty much taken wholesale. Some of the videos I'm seeing could be cut to, maybe it's a longer scene and they just use pieces of it, but it seems to be, lifted wholesale. Um, and So I just thought it was kind of interesting. I was wondering, I was talking to you before the podcast, kind of wondering, how this was missed for, the past 1.5 to 2 years. I guess not everyone can watch everything, so that could be the reason. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to watch and see how that develops. A note, something to note is that the episode of Visions was made by one of Disney's Indian studios called 88 Pictures. So maybe it's a little bit of a disconnect there in terms of what's going on per se. So I'm gonna keep track of this and see where this goes. Some part of me feels like this story was kind of familiar with Visions, with Star Wars Visions. Like somebody may have pointed this out to some degree, like a while ago, and then it's only just now getting into like legal terms now. But anyway, I'll keep an eye on it. And yeah, so that, and then Superman. There was a Superman #1 comic was found.
Action Comics.
Yeah.
Action Comics.
Well, it's
Okay.
I looked at the picture and just a Superman #1. It's a Superman on
Okay.
the top. So Action Comics, presumably. I didn't read the article, every single word of the article, but so basically somebody found Superman #1 in an attic, and it was in pretty good condition, and somebody put it in a bag and boxed it up, and then they sold it for $9.12 million.
Yeah,
Um,
and you're right. It is. Well, I didn't see the article, but I just pulled it up, and yeah, so it is Superman #1, not Action Comics #1. So it's not the first appearance of Superman, but it is the literal Superman run #1. Which I mean, heck, that's a great find. I mean, you always hear people talking about like you know like the barn finds for cars. Like yeah, oh, this is brand new car just under a tarp, just in Grandpa's barn or something like that. Just dusted it off. Tweak the engine and good to go.
I mean, like, it's like, I just want to know the story. And the person who probably bought it is probably dead because it's like the comic is like 86 years old. So the person that bought it was probably not, 0 years old when they bought it. They were probably like 10 or 20 or something like that. But I'd just like to know the story of like what happened, man. Like you got this comic, you took it home, it's in mint condition, so you probably either read it once or maybe not at all, and then put it somewhere. And in the 30s and 40s, comic book backs and bags were really not a thing. I'm pretty sure. Nobody knew what that stuff was going to be worth in the least. I just want to know, like,
It was just left in a file box and just completely forgotten
just
about. I
completely in
mean,
the most perfect, like out of the sun, in air conditioning, maybe not necessarily in air conditioning, but, in some kind of decently insulated attic. I imagine it's probably in the north or northeast, but maybe not. Yeah, I'm going to try to read around a bit a little later. I didn't have time before the podcast. I'm going to try to read around and see what the story is for that because, yeah. So if you have a grandma who has an attic, maybe sneak
rate
up.
it.
Yeah, maybe sneak up there. Maybe this Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving's coming up. You're going to Grandpa's house. Say, hey, Grandpa, can I get a look around in the attic? And he says, no, you can't. It's haunted. Maybe wait till he's asleep at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sneak up there anyway. Look around. Don't steal anything, but if you find a Batman #1, uh, steal it, sell it, and then give him, the 38 cents that he paid for it when he bought it in the 40s.
Well, I mean, the thing is also make sure to leave a message with some people saying, "Hey, if I go missing, uh, I didn't choose to go missing." You know, leave some breadcrumbs for a friend in case if when you what you find in the attic or the basement turns out that you were never supposed to find. You know, because who knows? Maybe there's a reason why the walls creak.
And
So yeah,
bleed.
just be careful.
Yeah.
But all
Yeah.
right, guys. Yeah, if you made it to the end, we appreciate it. Thank you. This has been another Dead Pixel, episode 153. Nick, what are some words of wisdom you have for the people out there?
Um, the best way to skin a possum is to boil it in cherry wood and honey for 3 days. That's my advice.
And instead of making your ostrich run around before you get to it, maybe just give it like a big bucket of bourbon and just, slow it down a little bit, maybe
you
pre-season it.
you've got to time that right, because if you give it bourbon and you don't give it long enough, then it just makes it angrier.
It becomes stronger.
It becomes
More,
stronger. Superhuman,
it
super
doesn't fear
ostrich
you.
strength.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been ADP. Until next time, y'all take it easy.
Bye.